introduction to JavaScript. Today we have day 6, loops. So we'll start off with taking a look at what you guys are going to have to do today. This one's similar to yesterday, but a little bit different. You're basically going to have to do, I think 2 apps is the minimum, but 4 apps for the bonus. Kind of like a Swiss Army knife of different apps. So when you first boot up this web application, it asks you which one you want to run. So basically, if I say like yell, I'm activating the yell program. And then I can put in a word like Ronald, and it will hopefully yell it back to me by making it all caps. Likewise, this is one of the bonus ones. This is a little bit harder. But if I put binary and I enter a string, anything, but then I put some zeros and ones, it will just return the zeros and ones to me. And then the other ones you can play around with, but it's kind of the same idea there. So to build this, you're definitely, I think each one of them requires the ability to loop in JavaScript. So let's start there, actually, with lecture today. I'm going to boot up my HTML website. This you can ignore. This is just notes to myself. I'm going to open up my console because I know I'm going to want to look at that a bunch. And then I want to start with the objective. So I called it pre-work reminder. I want to output a reminder to you guys to do your pre-work 100 times to the console. Now, how could I do this without loops? Ronald?
You can like manually type like console.log, hey, do your pre-work, and then you could like, I guess, control shift and like kind of push it down, or you could retype that or copy and paste it.
Yeah. So this would be ugly, right? I need it 100 times. So this would be ugly. So when we want to repeat a block of code, we have something called a for loop. So who got a pretty good idea of the pre-work? Who can take this objective, use a for loop to do your pre-work 100 times? Outputs the console.
You can start by declaring the for loop. Just put the word for.
Yeah.
And then you would have to put in the, I guess, condition. Like you have to declare
The
value.
first, so there's 3 pieces. The first piece is actually where we declare our variables. So traditionally, you would call this I, but it could be called anything. And then the second part, do you know what that is, Kim, of our for loop? Kim, are you there? No. Okay, she's working on her mic. Ryan, do you know what the second part is for our for loop
Yes,
here?
the break condition.
Yeah,
So the condition where it stops.
exactly. And here, what would be an appropriate condition?
Um, I is less than 100.
Exactly. And then our third part, do you remember what that is, Victor? The third part of our for loop?
Let's see. No, sorry, I can't remember right now.
No. All right, no worries. Sydney?
It's where you increment or
Decrement.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, decrement it.
Yep, exactly. And those are the three parts we need, right? It takes a little bit of getting used to. And then here's where the code runs, whatever you want. So remember, it starts here. And this part only actually runs, well, how many times? How many times does this part run, Sydney, in a for loop? This very first piece.
It runs until you get to the 100.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, but I'm just asking about this first little declaration. How many times does this declaration run?
0.
It runs once.
Or
Yeah.
Once. Okay.
And then it goes to the conditional. And if it's true, it then goes here to your code. So 1, 2, skips this, goes here. And then at the end of this could be 100 lines, but at the end, it then goes to your incrementer or decrementer. And then it goes back to the conditional, and then it goes to the code again. A little bit to get used to this structure, this for loop. But let's complete our objective, right? I wanted to say, what did I want to say? Do your pre-work 100 times. So I can say, do your pre-work. So let me console.log I here. Someone take me through those steps one more time. So yeah, let's pretend I press save to refresh this program. On line 5, what's the first thing that happens, Francis, in this for loop?
It checks if I is less than 100.
Not yet. The very first thing that happens in this for loop is what?
That I is set to 0.
Yeah, so the very first thing, we declare our variable, our local variable there, and then we never do that again.
Yeah.
And then what's the second thing that happens, Renata?
The second thing is, so we have that I less than 100. So 100 is the maximum that it will loop through.
And is 0 less than 100?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. So it goes where next, Rodrigo? Where does it go next, if this is true?
It runs to the code below.
Yeah.
And
Line
when it gets
6.
to the 100, it gets to the last part.
Oh no, not the 100 yet. So this resolved to true. So now we go here and run the code. Okay, so now presumably this will say 0 and do your pre-work. And then we get to the end of this block. And where do we go after that? Jazz.
After it increments the console.log once.
Well, it increments the variable I once, correct.
Yes.
So we go here to this part. And then after we increment I by 1, so I is now equal to 1. Now this is really tricky. Where do we go now, Zach?
I assume it would go to the part in between the squiggly brackets, the print to the console.
No. After incrementing, where do we go? Monica.
Does it check the condition?
Yes, we have to go check our condition again because we changed I. So is 1 less than 100, Monica?
Yes.
Yes. So then where do we go next?
It's gonna print the do your pre-work again.
So we go to line 6. Yep. After line 6, where do we go, Giang?
It would be increase a value of I.
Yep.
1.
We go to here. I is now 2. Where do we go after that, Alexander?
Does it go back to the code?
Nope. I mean, it goes to the code, but what part of the code?
Like doesn't it start adding on to the number?
No, so after we change the variable I, we then have to check it again over here. Yeah. So is 2 less than 100?
Yes.
And then where do we go? Then we're good to run the code. Line 6. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to go on because it just repeats again and again, but that's the flow, which is weirdly complicated for just a few lines of code, right? But for loop is going to be a fundamental part of more than JavaScript, of computer programming. So definitely get used to it, embrace it. That's a for loop. That's the basic structure. Questions on that? We're obviously going to expand on it.
Yeah, Mac, I have a question. So when you declare let I equals 0, what happens to that variable? It can't be used. Is there a garbage collection? Does it go away when the for loop completes?
So it only exists in this scope. And then when this code is done running, for our purposes, it disappears because... No, I'm sorry. When line 6 is done running, it still exists because then we increment that variable, that local variable that exists only in this scope. But when it gets after the for loop, then if there's then it can actually be accessed by anyone in the program. So this is a different topic, an important one though. David, what would I get if I tried to do this, do you think? What's your guess?
You'd get an error.
Yeah. So we'd get a reference error, right? So this is an important concept, which I probably should have mentioned when we first introduced let and const. When you use let and const, it's considered block scope. A block is what's in the curly braces. So variables only exist in the curly braces. So very important concept there. Any other questions on this basic format for a for loop?
Could you say that again about variables only existing in the, sorry, could you just say that again?
Yeah. So if I'll just say true because I don't know why I can't think of anything else. Here we have what we call a block of code. In the curly braces, we refer to this as a block of code. If we declare a variable in here, so student Lizzie, it only exists within these curly braces. And by exist, I mean we can only access it. Someone else can only access it and reference it and change it within its same home. So what do you think I'll see here if I try to access it, Lizzie?
I guess you would see it throughout the entire code.
I'll see it once on line 18, but then I'll get an error on line 21. So it can be accessed by line 18. It cannot be accessed by line 21. And this is a very important concept of scope. However, there's a solution we could do, which is we could change the scope. Does anyone have an idea if I wanted to access it everywhere in my program, what I could possibly do? Renata?
You would take it out of the block and move it to the global scope?
Yeah, if I just take it out and move it to what we call the global scope, just not in curly braces, now I can access it everywhere. So this is the very basics of scope. With let and const, it's actually It actually is that easy though. It's beautiful. It's always block scoped. With the older stuff like var, there's exceptions. It's function scoped, and it's harder conceptually. But with constant let, it's pretty clear cut. Okay. So our next objective, you're day one. You got a job at NASA. And they need a countdown to launch, I don't know, the rocket, whatever. So we have to count from the console.log 10 to 0. So who can help me with this? We need a console.log 10 to 0. Jazz?
So first, do the 4, and then initialize the I. What do you call that?
Yeah, great vocabulary.
And then equals to 10 since we're starting at 10. And then semicolon. And then I should be less than 10. Or I I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is why I did this one, because it's reversing what we're used to.
I is equal to 0.
Okay, we can start there and then maybe play with it.
Greater than 0.
Sorry. Okay. I is less than 10. Yes.
Less than 10 you want to go with?
We
can come back. It's just code. We can fix it.
Okay.
What's our third though?
And then I minus.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just a sanity check. Let's console.log I. And what do you expect to see, Jazz? If this is your code, what do you expect to see if we console.log I?
It should be. What is this? It should be. It should be just 10, just once.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm
10 just once. What do you think, Zach? Will we see 10 just once? What are our steps, Zach? If you don't know, what's our first step in this for loop? You're muted.
When you say first step, do you mean like walking through the loop itself?
Yeah. What gets activated first?
So it declares I as being equivalent to 10.
And then, declares the variable I with the value 10. And then where do we go next?
That I assume is the second part, checking the condition.
So is 10 less than 10?
No.
So where do we go?
I would assume that it would escape the loop completely.
Yep. Yeah, you're exactly right. So would we see anything in our console?
No.
Yeah. So we have some work to do, right? Monica, any ideas how we can fix this? We want to see 10 to 0.
Can you do times I greater than 0?
Yeah, let's start there. So we see 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We want to see 0 though. So one little tweak we need to do.
Greater than or equal to?
Yeah, exactly. And there we go. We have a nice countdown. Okay, I don't totally remember what I meant by I love you, but we'll play with that. So we want an application that asks if you love me, And if you respond yes, it says, I love you too. So when I first start up this website and click refresh, I want to see the question. Wait, why is this a loop? Oh, sorry. Yeah, wrong. I think I'm remembering now. So we want an application that asks, how many times do you need me to tell you? Yeah, I'm remembering now what I was talking about. So we have like an overly attached like girlfriend or boyfriend. It's like, how many times do you need me to tell you that I love you? Need me to tell you that I love you. Yeah. So when we start the application, it's like, how many times do you need me to tell you how many times I love you? And you say 10, and then it says to the console, I love you 10 times. Okay. So step one, how do we get a prompt to ask us, the user, a question? How many times do you want me to say I love you? Alexander?
Well, you need to use a prompt. I'm just forgetting exactly how you type it again.
Yeah, so prompt is a function we get for free. So what's the argument we give it? What goes in the parentheses?
Question.
What's that?
Would the question go in the parentheses?
Yeah, and what data type is the question, Aaron?
How many times do you love me?
Yeah, but that's the content, not the data type. What's the data type? Is it a string, Boolean, or number?
String.
Yep, string. Awesome. Okay, so I'm getting this prompt, and I put in the number 3, but nothing happens. How can I save the value of what's returned from this prompt in a variable? And what should I call that variable, Tara?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
So I want to save the result of what the user actually types in to a variable.
I guess love you.
Yeah, but how do we declare a variable?
That's that love equal.
Yeah, exactly. And then to test, I want to test that this actually works. How can I send myself a message to the console, kind of mirroring whatever the user types in?
Console.
Aaron?
Is it console.log?
Yeah, awesome. All right, and then to test this, I'm going to click refresh. This gets a little weird when we use so I type 23, I click OK, and I see 23. I'm on a good track. So now the fun part. Now, how can I do what I said and output the number of times they told me? I want to output to the console that I love you, Lizzie. We're going to use a for loop as the hint. No? Oh, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. Can you repeat your question again, please?
Yeah. So the whole idea of this app is how many times do you want me to say, I love you? I just kind of butchered this first part. And then the user says 12 and the console.log says, I love you 12 times.
Okay. So it would be a for loop.
Yep.
And
so
then
let's start there with a for loop. So what's the
declare,
first part of our for loop?
You would, I guess, declare a value on love, on the variable love.
We don't have to touch love. I mean, there's different ways you could do this, but I don't think we have to touch love, the variable. We basically want this to repeat as many times as they put in. So let's imagine love was like the number 10. we would want this for loop to run 10 times. This is a little bit tricky though.
I'm not sure.
Okay. David, any ideas for this first part of the for loop?
Yeah, so you're gonna have a counter in there, an I equal to 0.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good starting.
And then your break condition, let's see. So love is going to be a string, so I have to cast it to a number.
Ooh, very nice. Yeah. So where do you want to do that? In here, or we can do it?
I mean, can we do it in there? I don't know. I would do it in there if I could.
We can, I think. We can try at least.
Okay. So then there should be I is greater than or hang on a minute. 0. Love is
Picture the number is 10. The variable love is equal to well, it's the string 10, but the number 10.
Right. So if I is greater than or equal to love.
And then your final condition?
You decrement. So I minus minus.
Okay. All right. And let's, for a sanity check, console.log I. And then Kevin, what do you think David's code is going to produce if I put in the number 5 for love? So let's assume when I run this, I'm going to enter the number 5. What's the first part of this for loop that runs? Kevin? You there? Oh.
The first part.
Yeah, so we get I is equal to 0. Okay, where do we go next?
To check the second part.
Yeah, so is 0 greater than or equal to, let's assume I put in the number 5.
Greater. No, wait. 0 greater? No, it's less than.
So it resolves to what value? True or false?
False.
So I go where next?
Back to the beginning.
Line 20. I'm done with this for loop. Our work there is over. So I see what in my console?
5.
I see nothing in my console. Yeah. The way it's written right now, right? We can test it. How many times? 5? Yeah. So we need to tweak the code a bit. How can we tweak this, Daniel?
You would make it less than love instead, because it's going to be checking the number of that they enter and making. It's going to start at 0, and we want it to run up until the number that they enter.
Okay, let's try that. So I put in the number 5.
It's still not going to show anything because your love is still a string, I think. So you still have to convert it to a number.
Yeah, good point. Let's see what happens though. So we get this crazy output. I think I actually caused an infinite loop, maybe. Anyway, we're trying to say, is 0 less than the string 5? I have no idea how JavaScript is handling comparing a number and a string with that kind of comparison operator. It doesn't make really any human sense. I don't think there's a situation you would ever do that. So like David was saying, we have to convert this string to a number. So I think we can do that right here. So now if I didn't crash my whole computer, which I guess I did, or at least this tab. Let's run this again. Let's open my, let's try again. You guys can still hear me, right? Cool. Okay. Yeah, I caused some kind of infinite loop. Oh no, this is still, Wait, yeah, we still have an infinite loop going on. So what's our bug here? Does anyone spot it? Yeah, Renata.
Shouldn't decrement should be increment?
Yeah, we need to increment. Yep. Okay. Now, hopefully I can get this back. Okay, there we go. So this ran 5 times. And finally, we don't want to just console.log I, we want to console.log I love you. So let's do 10 times. And it's just giving us this little shortcut that it's outputting 10 times right there. So it works. Questions on that?
Max, is it so you usually start at 0 and then do like less than the number you want rather than like starting at 1 and then doing like less than and equal to the number you want? Like, is that the best?
It totally depends. Yeah. I mean, 0 is more traditional because it just kind of fundamentally in computer science, we start counting at 0. But that's totally just up to the specs of your application, what you're trying to do. Yeah.
If we wanted to convert it, the string love to a number outside of our for loop, would we just put that number around the entire prompt, or would it?
Yeah, which would look kind of ugly, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
But it would still work.
Okay.
Oops. Yeah, that's fine. The other way you can convert it, just use a plus sign before it. I think we'll convert it. It looks a little cleaner. Yeah. Other questions?
Why did decrementing it make it go into an infinite loop?
Oh, so before we had I minus minus, and the question is, why was this an infinite loop? So let me turn it to you, Roman. What's the first? Let's pretend we're refreshing this and saving this, and let's pretend I inputted the number 5. What's the first part of this for loop that gets activated?
I equals 0.
Okay, is 0 less than 5?
5. No. I mean, yes.
Yeah, so where does it go next? What line?
It goes to decrement.
No, it goes to line 18 after the comparison.
Oh, it's true.
So this runs. This was true, so this runs. And now where does it go, Roman? After this, after it's done running inside the scope, inside the block. It goes to the decrement, and I becomes equal to, I is 0, it becomes equal to what?
4.
It becomes equal to -1. So this minus minus really means let I equals I minus 1. So 0 minus 1 is -1. So I is -1. Now where do we go after the decrementer? Roman?
Goes to console log again.
No, after you change the variable, it then has to check again. So it goes here. So is -1 less than 5?
Yes.
Yeah, and then it keeps on going because you're just getting more negative. So is negative 10,000 is going to be less than 5.
Right. Yeah. I see.
Okay, so the next challenge we have is the I love you forever. We want a program that will continue to tell us that they love us. No, what do I want? Just continue to tell me that they love me if I say I love them. So it asked me, first it asked me, do you love me? And if I say yes, it asks me if I still love them. Do you still love me? And if I say yes, it continues to ask me forever. Does that make sense, or is that too weird? Yeah. So do you love me? Yes. Do you still love me? Yes. Do you still love me? Yes. Do you still love me? Yes, forever. So we're not going to be, well, let me ask you guys. So would a for loop work for this scenario? Why or why not? What do we think? And this is open to the class because it's hard.
No,
Why not?
because it's finite. So we'd have to do a while loop.
Yeah, so we're going to need something called a while loop. And the while loop is actually simpler than a for loop. While, and you put a Boolean here, and it will just run forever until this value changes to false. So, how can we... First off, let's just get a prompt going for do you love me and save that into a variable. That'll be step 1, right? So how can we ask, do you love me, and save that response into a variable? Ketzerin?
Yes. You want while loop, or you want let's love me equal prompt. Do you love, and course, do you love me?
Okay, great place to start. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's all. I thought it like love me am supposed to be the M supposed to be the bigger letter, but I think it's work. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we're good. So do you love me? And I say yes. And now I want us to say, do you still love me? How can we do that? So I say yes, and it says, do you still love me?
I think you're gonna have to do one more. Let's do let's still love.
No, we don't have to. We don't have to.
Okay, so
We could probably, but we don't have to.
are we gonna have to use if statement, or we gonna have to use while loop?
You tell me. Yeah.
Okay, let's do while. I'm not sure.
So
it's
while.
And do you love me? And
So we said yes is the answer we want.
Yeah.
So how do I say while love me is a yes?
Do you love me? And said yes. And then why? I'm not sure after that.
Okay. Alex, any guesses here? Or we can do a different strategy. There's probably a million ways to solve this.
Would it be for the while love me equals and the do you love me?
Well, we said yes.
Okay, so yes.
Okay, this is a great place. Yeah, and then what do we want? What code do we want to run if the answer is yes? What's the next question we want to ask them?
You want another prompt, right?
Yeah, another prompt, and what does that one say?
Do you still love me?
Love me.
Yeah. Now, if we run this, what is the problem with the way this code is? I'm going to say yes. And then here I'm going to say no. And it's still asking me forever if I love them. So what do we... There's actually a kind of an elegant way we can solve this.
Do you need a break?
No, we don't need a break. We need this condition to somehow be false if they don't say yes. So how can we change the value of this variable?
Would you do an or statement after the yes? Like another love me?
Or, no.
Do you have
So-
to redeclare the?
Yeah.
Do you have to redeclare the variable inside of the while loop? So love
Yeah.
equals prompt.
Yeah, just like that. So now if I say, well, let's take through the logic. Let's go through the logic together, right? And see why this works. So, Zach, on line 24, when I say yes, what does love me equal to?
Yes.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this isn't letting me refresh. So let me kill this. Okay. So I say, do you love me? Love me is equal to yes. And then on line 25, what is love? What is inside the parentheses there?
It's checking to make sure that love me does equal yes.
So that's going to resolve to true or false.
True.
So then we're going to see the question, do you still love me? And if I say yes, what's the value of love me still?
It's still yes, so it's true. So it's going to loop again.
It loops again. And if we say yes, it loops again until finally we do anything but yes. And what is the value of line 25 now that we change the value of love me?
That is false.
So it exits the loop. So this is a use case for while. While is a little bit dangerous though, because you get those infinite loops.
Isn't a for loop basically, it like has a while loop inside of it, kind of?
Not automatically. You could put a while loop in there. You could make a situation where it functions like a while loop, like we did by accident. Other questions on this one? I think we have one more example. So we're making good time, actually, if you guys have questions. And we even talked about scope, which is good. All right. So our final example. Is any do we have any cool hackers here who know what leet speak is? Cool hackers? No? You change vowels to be like numbers. So like E becomes 3. That's the one we'll do right now. So basically the idea is I want an application that converts my users' words to leet speak. Speak. Yeah. Speak is with an A, right? My brain is freaking out right now. So we are basically going to take the word, and if there's an E, we're going to make that be a 3 instead, the number 3. Well, it'll actually be the string 3. So it's kind of simple. For the example today, you're going to convert all the vowels, but to get us started, we'll just do E's. So let's brainstorm as a class. How can we get this going? What do we think? First, we need to ask the user for the word they want to convert and save that into a variable. So maybe that we could start there. So Sarthak, let's start there. How can we ask the user to give them a word to convert to leet speak.
Will we start with prompt?
Yep, we'll start with prompt. Provide me a word to leadify. I don't know. So we get a prompt going. And how do we save the result into a variable? Sarthak?
We use a list and name of variable.
Yep, what's a good name?
I think I don't know actually what lead means.
Oh, it doesn't. It's elite, but with. I think it's from the word elite. I don't really know. It's not important. What's a good name for a variable that just contains basically any word?
User word.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. So we're saving whatever the user tells us in a variable called user word. Now let's brainstorm. So if they tell us the word Alexander, we want to output to them the word Alexander, but the E would be a 3. That's what we're trying to do. So let's brainstorm as a class. Does anyone have a strategy?
I think we can use a for loop to loop the word.
Okay, so we're going to use a for loop to iterate through the characters. I like that. So how can we, let's get started doing that. That's a good idea. So how can we iterate through these characters?
And then you have to check if those characters have a vowel.
Yeah. Well, check specifically if the character is equal to an E. Yeah. Check if character is equal to E. But let's get going just on this for loop. Let's try to console.log one character at a time of our user's word. How can we do a for loop to iterate through a word?
Can you do for I in the variable?
I'm going to show you that shortcut. It's called a for of loop. But first, we're going to do it the standard way. And we're not going to use in. That's going to come way later in the course.
Less I equal E, I think.
No, not E. This is going to be kind of standard.
Oh, okay. Zero.
Yeah, we're going to do 0 here. And then this part is interesting. What's going to be our comparison, our conditional?
I less than user word dot length.
Yeah, so here I think this is the very first time we're using, this is actually a property. I know that word doesn't really have any meaning yet, but when we press dot, JavaScript gives us all these built-in properties and methods that we can use on strings. And one of them is that it calculates the length of a string for us automatically, just because it exists. So I can find that here with length. So user word.length, if I type in my name Max, what is that going to equal? I forget where we were. Francis.
Sorry. Could you say that one more time?
Hypothetically, if I put in the my name for the word here, so user word was equal to the string Max. So user word.length is going to equal what?
3.
Exactly. And that's all just given to us automatically that we can use on any string value. So basically, so far, we're going to count from 0, 1, 2. So what's our third piece of this for loop that we need, Renata?
We want to increment, so I++.
Awesome, yeah. And then for a sanity check, if I do I here, what will we see, Rodrigo? Let's assume I put in my name Max. What do you think? What do you think we'll see in the console?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Okay. Jazz, do you have a guess? If I put in the word Max.
It's going to be 3.
It's not going to be 3, no.
2.
I mean, that's partial answer.
It'll go 0, 1, 2.
Yeah, there we go. So let me run this again, put in the word Max. So why do we see 0, 1, 2, right? So let's break this down a little bit. What happens at the very first time we encounter this for loop? Monica?
It declares the variable I to 0.
Yeah. Where do we go next, Jiang?
Yeah, and then you move to the next part, condition. If so I right now 0, so it's less than 3.
And that resolves to what?
And result to console log 0.
It resolves to the value true. So then we go where,
yeah.
Alexander?
To the code, the console log.
Yeah. And we see a 0 in our console. And then where do we go?
To the declaration or whatever it's called, the I++.
Yeah, the incrementer. Yeah. So I is now equal to what? I is now equal to what value? From 0 to
3.
To 1. We're adding 1 to the value with this syntax. Yeah. So then where do we go after the incrementer, Hara?
It goes back to the condition and checks if I is less than the user word length.
So is 1 less than 3?
Yes.
So where do we go?
So we'll log 1.
Yeah.
And then
Go back to where after that?
incrementer.
Yep. The incrementer. Now we're at the comparison is 2 less than 3. That's true. So it does it once more. And it goes to the incrementer. I is now 3. Is 3 less than 3? False. It breaks. So we never actually see 3. But now the whole idea is we want it to go one character at a time. I'm not seeing a number. I'm not seeing a character. I'm seeing a number here. So the unique things with strings are we can access their individual characters by using bracket notation. We can access the individual characters in a string by using bracket notation. So, for example, actually, let me shut this off just for a second. So, for example, if I have a string of Kevin, and I just want to see the K in my console, I can do student bracket 0, because we start counting at 0, And these are our indexes. So to see that K, I can do bracket 0. And then we can see it in here, the K. And if I want to see just the V, what can I put as my number here, Aaron?
You want to see if you want to see the V?
Yeah, and Kevin, I just want to see the V.
Well, we didn't define it, right?
We're using this bracket notation to just see the single character. So we start at 0, 1, 2. So if we put a 2 here, we can see just the V. So this is a property of strings that we use bracket notations to access individual characters. We can use this fact to iterate through each one of our characters one at a time by using what? How can I see each character of user word by modifying this code here? Opens the class.
You put the I in brackets in console log.
So I in brackets. What? So I in brackets, I put my name, Max. And I see that. So that's not exactly what I want.
Would be if.
If where? I just want to see MAX in my console. I want to iterate through the characters of my name one at a time.
User words in brackets or I.
Yes. So we have to put the name of our variable and then the brackets. And then we can see each one of our characters one at a time. So the first iteration, what is I equal to? Lizzie? On this first iteration, what is I equal to? You're muted, but...
Can you say that again?
Yeah, on this first iteration. So when we first encounter this for loop, what is I equal to? Do you need, yeah, so the very first iteration, we have I equals 0. And then we go where, Rodrigo? Where does it go next?
Right next to the I less than user word length.
And is 0 less than, let's say we use my name again, Max. Is 0 less than what value?
0 less than 3, so it goes to the code down there.
Yeah, and now what is this value? What does this expression evaluate to? User word bracket. What is I again? What is the value of I right now?
It's 0, and then it goes
0. So
back.
user word bracket 0 is equal to what if the string is Max?
It's equal to M.
Exactly. Awesome. And then it goes on. I becomes 1. User word bracket 1 is equal to what, Jazz, if the string is Max?
It's going to turn into 1.
I is 1, correct. But user word bracket 1, if user word is equal to Max, is equal to what value? What character?
It's going to be A.
Yeah,
It's going to
exactly.
increment.
So there we go. And unfortunately, we don't have time to do what we set out to do with our objective here. But in pseudocode, check each character if it's equal to an A. If it's equal to an E, change it to a 3. So you're going to build a new string to eventually output. But you will have to do that. Figure that out. All right, final questions because we're at an hour. No? Okay, let me get the breakout rooms. Sign.